I'm Connor Martin, and this is my writer's dossier.
No writers were harmed in the production of this podcast.
Connor Martin, the star of the hit show Rescue Me. Dude, you were known as friend of kid with head stuck in fence. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Until I probably filmed that when I was, 12, 13, 20, 20 years ago at least now. But for a long time, I got royalty checks for like a couple bucks, couple bucks a year. I had one line and I really practiced, and I'm pretty proud of how it turned out. It's season 2, episode 1, if anyone wants to check it out.
Oh,
the line was
first episode is nice. What was the line?
Well, I'll kind of deliver it the way it did on the show. Of course, I'm friend,
go.
Right? So my friend has his head stuck in the fence, and I'm just sort of standing there, and I just go, "My mom's gonna kill us." So if the Academy wants to come calling. Here, they know where to find me. Yeah.
Did you let your SAG card lapse, or are you still in the guild? What's going on with the union dues? You paying dues? You get insurance?
I don't know if I was ever in SAG. I mean, to be honest, if I was, I certainly am not anymore. But it was a lot of fun. It was kind of a funny thing, and yeah, if the book doesn't work out, then I guess I know what my backup plan is.
That's right. You'll forever be known as friend of kid with head stuck in fence. Dude, the Silver Fish, your book, debut, spy novel. This thing is highly anticipated, and it's coming out from Mysterious Press. Julia O'Connell's doing a great job over there with some big names coming out, some big books. Comes out April 7th. Oh, dude, what is the Silver Fish?
That is the question, right?
That is the question. Got a great cover. I'm curious. There are things in here we have to know about. There it is. You have it. Oh,
I will carry one around with me at all times. But yeah, what is the Silver Fish, or where, or who, or when is the Silver Fish? I can promise everybody that the phrase does appear in the book, and the answer does appear in the book, but you got to read it to find out.
Gotta read it to find out. Well, it's a spy novel. It's your debut, and you have an interesting background about what you've done and how it's influenced your book. I know what we can say is that a good portion of the book takes place overseas in Africa. And you and I have both been to Ghana. You spent a lot more time there, though. I walked away with an immense sound and color, the vibrance, and the whole environment was wow. What did you walk away with? And how much time did you spend there? What did you do there? Tell us about your experience in Ghana, and then eventually how that led into picking Ghana to write about in this book, The Silver Fish.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I actually didn't know that you've been to Ghana. I want to hear about that when after I give.
That was a military contract. Can't talk about it.
Got it. Okay, then never mind. So Ghana. So I spent a summer in Ghana when I was in high school. And which again is now when I started the book, which was 9 years ago. It felt less far away than it does now, but as every year that seems further and further in the past. But no, it was a super formative experience. And I mean, Ghana is an incredible country, incredible Ghanaians are incredible people. I spent time in Accra, which is the capital where, much of the Silver Fish takes place. I spent time in Kumasi, which is kind of the second city, sort of more in the center of the country where there's some key scenes take place. And I spent some time in the countryside and sort of, various other parts of the city, Takoradi. But, I think just like you said, Jeff, like, Ghana is, at least for me, it was the first time I'd ever been so far, first and only time I've ever been to Africa. And it was the first time really I'd been outside of the United States and Western Europe when I was in high school. And so it was really a sensory experience, and just it made a massive impression on me. And I took a pretty detailed journal while I was there of like, what did I see and do on any given day? And, that journal I kept for years and years. And many of the scenes in the book whether it's in a particular market or a bar or, a particular field in the countryside, are literally like straight out of that journal. Not the characters, obviously, not the plot, but the
Yeah.
setting was a place that I went to and a place that, I could picture in my head while I was writing the book. So, um, it just felt like such a rich environment. As a writer, you want to feel confident in your setting. You want to feel like I can picture myself there so that my reader can picture themselves there. And for me, Ghana there was just something about it that I wanted to set a story there.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that story just a little bit, and I'll hit the high notes, and you can fill in the gaps. This is a spy novel, folks. There's an American involved. There's obviously some locals involved. A really interesting character, a female character, is a journalist over there. And the thing that you said about being a journalist is how you start going after a story. You get one, but it's not ever quite the one you're looking for. And that's what happens to this girl when she gets caught up in a couple crazy angles with espionage, big powers of the United States and China and the silverfish, which you've gotten into a little bit, but the underground sea cables that carry data. That's known. That's out there. I'm not saying
Yeah.
anything out of school on that. But let me just say this. Elana Berry, friend of the dossier, a good friend of mine, says this is set in the teeming streets of Ghana. Like we said, Martin's intricate tale plumbs the depth of personal discovery, betrayal, and justice. Colorful characters, gritty setting, international stakes, and a healthy dose of deception. So, what else do people need to know about the silverfish?
Yeah, no, I'm such a huge fan of Ilana's and the Peacock and the Sparrow that she's
Mm-hmm.
been super super generous. I got to meet her like a year and a half ago. Right when I was at the beginning, I'd finished the book, I'd gotten the contract, but like the publishing journey was just beginning, and I was kind of like, any advice? And she's just been super super
Yeah.
generous with her time. So to have her praise from somebody who's herself written like such an incredible spy novel and I know is working on, her next thing, it means a lot. Yeah, so the book is like you said, it's a spy novel. It's the main character I would say is Danielle Moreau, who's the journalist you were talking about. She's an American woman. She spent a lot of her life, a lot of her adulthood abroad as a foreign correspondent. She finds herself in Ghana through sort of a variety of life circumstances, looking for a particular story. The book opens with her looking for a story. Um, she's looking into a story about oil and the oil industry, which is when I was in Ghana, all those years ago, they had just discovered this massive offshore oil deposit. So like it was very much in the air. Ghana's going to be the next Nigeria, the next Norway. We're going to be incredibly wealthy, and also a fear of like what happens with all that money, and a lot of countries with those level of resources, things get mismanaged or things don't go well. But there was a lot of energy around it. So I took that as my starting point, but pretty quickly, or through the course of the book and other characters she meets, she gets pulled into, like you said, Jeff, this story about these undersea fiber optic cables. And it's funny that so many of the folks who've read the book that aren't in the sort of national security or policy space writ large, or or don't work at a tech company or whatever, are just like, is that really true? Like, are these really these cables under the water? And I'm like, yeah, that really is actually how the internet
Yeah.
works. It's pretty. I just think it's like this kind of amazing thing that most people just don't know. That if I'm sitting here in New York, right, and I send an email to somebody in Tokyo, like that data is flying beneath the water at the speed of light, right? That's why fiber optic, right? So it's at the speed of light. It feels instantaneous, and it pretty much is, but in fact, it's not, right? And I mean, Starlink is maybe changing this a little the last couple of years, where there is this new way of doing the internet, but that's literally like the last year or two, right? So for the most part, this is how the internet works that we all know. And I think what's so cool about it, and why I sort of seized on it in terms of the plot of this sort of the spy plot that comes into the book, is that ultimately, yeah, it's about tech, it's about sort of modern speed of communications, but it's just like any age-old fight between two nations over a physical piece of ground or a piece of sea floor bed, right? Like the wire is a physical thing. Its pathway along the seafloor is a physical, place. And you could go back centuries, right? And it's just the same old thing, right? And one nation wants to control the space, the other nation wants the ability to move through that space, and the two of them have to duke it out over who has that access and who doesn't. And so it just fascinated to me that this modern world that we, in sort of in the United States, certainly, we experience, we got our iPhones, we got our this, we got our that. When Netflix is buffering a little, it's like, what's going on, right? We have this ease and this
Yes.
convenience, but fundamentally it's this real like pick and shovel world where it's like it's just physical stuff, and there are, nation state dynamics around who gets to control that physical stuff. And it's just a really old story, even in this super modern world that we're all living in. And I really just wanted to play with that through the characters.
I love it, and you're absolutely right. There are underwater sea cable ships that lay this cable, folks. This is the real thing. Yeah, that just goes under goes under the water and just lays there on
Yeah.
the seafloor. There's
I
been
mean, you can
lots of
see you
talk
can
about.
You can see pictures, right? It's all over, there's a ton of open source reporting on this, and there's
Yeah.
amazing long articles, and Reuters did a good one a couple years ago, the FT, like, just there's lots. You could see pictures of just the beach somewhere with a giant cable coming up out of it and going into the earth at some point, and that's um, so
It's
it's
just
real. It's
wild.
really real. And in fact, there are more cables being laid every day, right? Because the bandwidth requirements of, all the various things we use the internet for, even compared to a couple years ago, even compared to 10 years ago, right? Like, it's just more need. And ultimately, all the big companies, big tech companies, Meta, Google, Amazon, they in many cases own their own chips and are out there laying these cables, so it's real. No, it is 100% real. And I think it's a really underappreciated aspect of the modern world by most people.
Absolutely. You are qualified to write this book. You've done research on it. You've actually been to Ghana. Most people haven't. You were able to capture the sights, sounds, and smells of this in a firsthand way, and I think you did a great job with it. Um, you said something about the publishing journey at the beginning of that last answer. You're with the Mysterious Press, and I was on a panel last year with Julie O'Connell. Met her; she put us together. What was that process like for you? Because like I said, you're qualified. You've got lots of interesting things about you. And I want you to answer that question first, and then we're going to talk about how you were on the Committee of Foreign Investment and Council of Foreign Relations. We'll get to that. But
Yeah.
how did how did all of that, your experience before, with Ghana and then with your government experience, how did that all form together into this unique ball of clay that ended up to be the silverfish?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so yes, I'm with Mysterious Press. They're amazing. Julia runs the sort of marketing arm for Mysterious, but it's part of sort of Otto Penzler's world, right? Where he obviously is
Hmm.
just a legend in this space and has published so many incredible, thriller writers, not just in the spy novel genre, but all kinds of crime novelists, mysteries, etc. So getting to like meet and work with Otto is really a privilege. So the publishing journey, I think, like, I'm a first time writer, right? And I'm not, at least I wasn't until just now, I'm not a professional writer, right? So, like, I think most writers, I had this kind of project that I was kicking around in my spare time while I did the rest of my life and the rest of my career. um, you know, I've always been a reader. I've loved reading, and I, at some point in my sort of youth, basically was like, maybe I want to try tinkering with my own and writing my own stuff. And that over the years became the Silverfish. And like I said, it really drew on my time in Ghana, so I had a firm sense of the setting, and then the characters. Sort of Danny came alive for me. James came alive for me, the double came alive for me, and Billy, and really those are the four, and they kind of like, billiard balls through the course of the plot. So I just loved it, but I wasn't getting paid to do it, and nobody really cared whether nobody except my now wife, right, really even knew
Nobody
how it was going,
cares.
basically, right? So that can be lonely, right? And there's an element of like sort of positive self-delusion you have to do, where it's like, I know the odds are high, but I believe, first of all, I love doing it. I'm having fun
Mhm.
writing these scenes. I'm having fun imagining these
Yeah.
characters. And I believe that if I keep at it, I will get someone will want to read it and someone then will want to publish it. And ultimately that's what happened.
Keep believing that.
Yeah,
Right.
and so I got, I think I mentioned a few minutes ago, I started this book 9 years ago. So I wrote a full draft. I actually got an agent in 2019 who was excited about it, and then COVID kind of hit the brakes, and, like, I kinda lost my momentum with her. I put it in a drawer for a couple of years. My own life was sort of I was moving around, it was COVID, and then I restarted revisited it, in, like, let's say 2022, something like that, 4-ish years ago. Took it out of the drawer, proverbial drawer, and reworked it and got excited about it again. Ultimately ended up, querying agents again. Got great agent Kirby Kim over at Janklow and Nesbitt, who's just,
Oh yeah, we know
exceptional.
Kirby. Yeah.
Yeah, and Kirby's amazing. And then worked with him, and it's like, I couldn't, I would have never believed if you go back to the beginning how many times I would rewrite this book, even when I thought it was already done, you know?
Um,
Um, so just, but it got better every time, and it got sharper and it got, the tension got dialed up. That one scene or paragraph moved over here and it unlocked the whole thing. Right. And so that happened.
wow.
Um, and, uh, and then, Kirby and I, we went out to publishers and Mysterious bought the book and then, I'm also now writing the sequel, for Mysterious. So, it was a long journey, I think for anyone who's listening, who's sort of at earlier stages of their own journey, like it is, I get it. I mean, it is lonely sometimes, and it's not always clear the payoff is going to be worth it. But I think if you have those two things, number one, just a love of the game, a love of writing, a love of storytelling, and a love of kind of the written word. That's number one. And then number two, a little bit of positive self delusion, where it's like, you know what, I'm gonna publish this. I know it.
Yes.
It happens, right? It happens. It happened for me, and so it's amazing to be here to actually hold the finished book in my hand now and be coming out.
Yeah, folks watching on YouTube or listening, you can look at the screen and take a look at this great cover. I mean, it just grabs you. And, man, you nailed it. Perfect setup there. What is the Silverfish? Folks, you got to get this book. It's available now. Go get it. Connor Martin. Hey, dude, so if you hadn't have pulled that out of the proverbial drawer, what else would Connor Martin be doing creatively? I mean, you work in DC, you live in New York. I wore my New York sweatshirt just for you.
That's for me,
Um,
right? I knew that
that's
was
for
from
you today. That was for you. And so you are exposed to a lot of different sights, sounds, flavors, smells, everything, so many different people. And then you spend so much time on Amtrak and the train going back and forth, probably wrote hundreds of words on the train, made it better on the train. You've got just so much rich, varied background. Like I said, we're working for the government. If you weren't doing the book, what else would Connor Martin be doing creatively?
Yeah, I love that question, Jeff. I mean, I just like I've always loved. I think if I weren't doing this book, I'd be trying to get a different book published. I love.
No, if you weren't
Oh, yeah, if
writing
I
it,
weren't
okay,
writing,
yeah,
if I weren't writing.
Connor Martin plays the flute at
I see.
the
Well, I've always wanted to, but have never taken a single lesson. I've always wanted to play the drums, learn how to play the drums.
Oh,
Because I
there you
think,
go.
I love the drums, in rock music or any jazz, I love different kinds of drumming. And I also feel like it's good. It just looks like good stress release, like there's no other instrument where sometimes you just actually have to hit it as hard as you
You can
possibly
hit
can.
stuff.
So I would say in another life, I'd have the drum set out and, my wife would probably hate me, but I'd be, banging away at all out.
Star TV guy on Rescue Me,
Yeah.
thespian, musician, playing drums for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Connor Martin. And I know you have a child now. Everyone out there who knows Connor, especially those family members, set of drums for the kid. That's what his family needs right now, everybody. So go out and do that. While
Yeah.
you're out there, grab a copy of the Silverfish. Dude, thanks so much for coming on the Writer's Dossier. How do we get a hold of you? I think it is Connor Martin Books, Connor Martin Author. What is it?
ConnorMartinAuthor.com. all one
There you
word.
go. All one word. Go to that website. It's a cool website. You'll see the cover I'm talking about, but you'll see the cover on Amazon when you go buy it or in the stores. The Mysterious Press. Good job, Julia, getting this out there, and your editors. And thanks to Alana Berry for helping this along and everything else. Paul Vidich, dude, I wish you the best on this debut. Thanks for coming on the Writer's Dossier, and we can't wait for the debut.
Jeff,
That's
thanks
it.
so much for having me. It's been great.
You betcha. Thanks a lot, man. Bye,
Yeah,
everybody.
thank you.
The Dossier Podcast is a production of The Idea Academy.